Welcome to Rucks, Mauls and Oval Balls. Yes, that's right, it's the fans' favourite rugby podcast, back again with the fans' favourite rugby podcast hosts. That's right, it's me, Dave, joined as ever by Rory. Rory, say hello to the listener as you always do.
Hello, listener. Hello, David.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm well. I can confirm, early doors, I've had a bit more sleep. My mood should be better than last week, but I fear things may get in the way of that optimism quite early on. But we'll get into that.
I don't think my mood's going to be much better than yours was last week. So,
Okay, well,
let's keep the powder dry on that one, shall we?
Brace yourselves, people. Outside of that, Rory, how are you? How are things going?
Good. Yeah, not so bad. Not so bad. I watched the games on Saturday with some of our old stable mates from Essex University who
Fantastic.
popped down to Leon C to watch the game in the sunshine. So no, it was a nice it was a nice day if the results weren't quite reflective of that. But no rugby obviously this last week. So looking forward to a run up with the Lions this week to exert some frustrations.
Well, it sounds like it's much needed. It's much needed. Also, I laced the boots and went out with Man v Fat for the first time in a few months yesterday.
How'd you feel?
Sore.
Yeah.
It's amazing how not doing something for 3 months and then going straight back into it, your body ain't ready for it.
No. It's it really is quite a profound ache that you get. I
think that's what's called aging. I think I'm really feeling the wrath of that part of life. But no, it was good to get back there. It was good to see some familiar faces, some new faces. So, it's good to get going. And
Bristol Club still going strong then?
It's getting there. They've had to... So they had 4 teams when I stopped going. They've had to go down to 3 teams because the season I left there, the playing numbers weren't doing so good. But it was a good turnout last night. So hopefully the poor weather being behind us... some new faces coming along, some good word of mouth, and maybe we'll get some more people down because it's always good fun.
Yeah.
And I'm now a proud member of the red team, or as I've been able to squirrel my way in and already dictate the name of the team, the Scale Sharks. So I'll keep you all up to date.
Good to know that 3 months in between playing wasn't wasted whilst you jotted down some potential team names for your return.
If there's one thing I love is a pun. But yeah, I'll keep everyone up to date with the progress of the red team in North Bristol's Man v Fat this season.
Absolutely. Well, I think I need to get back on the horse with the old the weight loss as well, David. So I think you and I can support each other's journey going into the summer. So we're summer bod ready.
Oh, summer bod ready. Imagine it. Oh, yeah. It's a challenge we'll have to step up to, Rory, but I'm sure between us we can at least shed a couple of kegs.
Between us and Ab.
A singular ab would be lovely. But, Rory, I know it's always good fun talking about our personal lives on this podcast, but the people aren't here to listen about that. They are here to listen to us talk about rugby. Maybe rant about rugby. Just, again, heads up. This one might be ranty. We're an honest pod, and it turns out this week we might be a ranty pod. But we'll try. We'll try and consider.
Yeah. We got a lot of comments about some of the honesty exhibited last week, David. I'll be interested to see what the comments are on our honesty this week.
I look forward to it. But, we'll try and also be unbiased. We'll try and shed some light on some of the other games that went on this weekend, because there's some good news stories if you are fans of nations that aren't England. And at the end, I will do a little summary of the Prem Next Gen Under-18 Academy League that came to a close over the weekend, just because I thought it was a real good event and something we should shine a light on. How does that sound to you, Rory? Does that sound like a podcast we can embark upon?
Sounds like one I can endorse.
Thank God, because it'd be awkward if you said no. But starting off with... we usually do a little bit of news. I think the only thing that I've picked out for this week that may be worth us talking about, very much in our wheelhouse, is that the rugby paper is reporting just today, actually, that the RFU Council are primed to rubber stamp this week the attempts by the Prem clubs, Bill Sweeney, the RFU exec, of franchising and getting rid of promotion and relegation in the top tier of English rugby. Obviously, details are scarce, and it's all speculation at this point, but it looks like it's going to lock in potentially the 10 teams up until 2030. The idea is then to open it up to more teams who want to enter the franchise model. I've seen some quotes saying that they could be gearing up towards having like 20, 24 teams in the future. So a la maybe 2 ring fence potentially. So I think we talked about a model like that in the past anyway. So
I think that kind of aligns with what we talked about. I think that it's such an emotional issue removing relegation out of a British sporting pyramid because it's so ingrained in British sport to have promotion, relegation, and jeopardy both ends of the leagues. I think what we spoke about and kind of how I view this is we have to just hope this is the start and not the end. And I think getting to that point where we've potentially got, let's say we have 24 franchises in 5-10 years time and a 2-league franchising system. That's quite a healthy place for English rugby to be in, particularly compared to now.
Yeah.
And this is probably the only way you can do it, by growing the value of the league as it is today and then creating a pathway to build out to that wider franchise model. My gut feel is they will go to 14 teams would be the next step, and probably in 2 conferences.
Yeah,
and then moving from there to expand to 18, 20, 24, depending on growth prospects of other teams. I mean, it does mean that they are going to have to, at some point, find a way to guide finance towards champ sides.
Yes.
There are obviously a handful that are on kind of the pathway. Worcester, obviously, Ealing, Doncaster have a potential pathway, particularly in that Yorkshire region. Coventry, I think, would be on that pathway. I suspect they're planning ahead for London Irish and Wasps being in the mix. Maybe someone like London Welsh, who are back in National 2 at the moment, I think.
Yeah, and that Yorkshire team we spoke about before in the past as well, of kind of having a Yorkshire team.
I would imagine they'd be hopeful of Doncaster and someone like Rotherham, maybe. I mean, they probably would love Leeds to make their way back, although I think Leeds have been a bit of a basket case for a while.
Yeah.
So I think if the Prem and the RFU can put a long-term plan in place to strategically build out a franchise model to get that kind of full national coverage, probably is the way to do it, and does make sense. And as long as the council rubber stamp it and get out of everyone's way, then
there's an interesting paragraph or 2 in the article I read this in, where there's amongst everything that's being put in front of them, there's a thing called Project Forge, which looks like may well be them being asked to rubber stamp and sign off on their own demise and getting rid of the RFU Council in the current situation. So it'll be interesting to see how and what news comes out at the end of this week.
Well, generally speaking, turkeys don't vote for Christmas, but there's one thing we know about the RFU Council turkeys: they do love gravy.
They do.
So maybe they will vote for Christmas on this occasion.
Maybe they will. But I think the thing for the list to take away from here is this proposed speculation around franchising and getting rid of promotion relegation. I am 99.9% certain that is heading our way. We always say there's no smoke without fire, and this fire has been roaring for some time. So
I think it's inevitable, and I think it's probably necessary.
It is, and I suspect what we'll hear is that they'll set out a plan. So I think the Prem, as we know it now, will be what it is for the next 3-4 years to 2030, and I think that's the line in the sand they're going to be aiming at to increase it up to that 14. So I think those are the timescales we're talking. And whether that coincides with kind of the global calendar, then you can figure out how you fit all these new models in. There's a few pieces of the puzzle that could all fall into place. And it'll be interesting to see what does come out, if it is all happening this Friday as being reported. But Rory, that was the only bit of news.
Yeah, the constant shifting sands of the global rugby landscape.
Oh, that sounded poetic, Rory.
That's prose. That's prose right there.
That is prose. But, I very much enjoyed talking this rugby news section with you, Rory, because this is a positive, happy podcast that we try and remain positive and happy in. But I'm very conscious that the next step is for us to start.
We're delaying the inevitable.
Is it obvious that I'm just dancing around the fact that
we just talk about the Premier Rugby Cup? Gloucester got a really good result in that.
We could. We could talk about paint drying. We could talk about tax codes. These are all things I'd rather talk about.
All things that I enjoy more than that England performance.
Yes. Listen, we'll talk about the Six Nations, and we're going to talk about England versus Ireland. Now, I know last week I was a little bit moany.
Well, I think on this occasion, David, you were kind enough last week to give me the opportunity to open up the discussion, you then to get moany. I'd like to return the favour on this occasion for you to give your thoughts on the game, and then I can pick those apart with anger.
Okay, it's tricky because on one hand, I feel like what I was saying last week's been completely justified because, they just got and done it again, but, a little bit worse.
Yeah.
Just matter of factly, for some reason, I don't know what's happened in the space of a few weeks. That is a side of players who seem bereft of confidence, bereft of motivation in playing in an England shirt, bereft of tactical and defensive ability. I haven't seen an England performance that bad for a long time. And I think we can sit here and put our hat on the scrum being strong, which was literally probably the only slight positive, albeit we should have been strong considering Ireland had their fourth choice loose head and has been going backwards the entire tournament anyway, so it's not really a big old pat on the back we should be giving ourselves. But I don't think, to a man, there was a player there who justified their match fee they'll be receiving, because I don't think any of them performed to the standard we should expect of people in that shirt. And do we get to a point now, and it feels really dumb because like 3-4 weeks ago I'm very aware that we were singing the praises of Steve Borthwick and all the changes he's done and the directions he's moved England to and how positive all things were. It's amazing how things change in such a small amount of time. But it's because I think it's just the nature and the gravity of how poor that performance was against a team in Ireland who, I think they played well on the day. I'm not going to take that away from them. But this is not prime golden age Ireland we're talking about. They were just so much better than England was. And it's frustrating because change is obviously needed. And I don't want to sit here and call for a coach's job. I don't want to sit here and say all of those players shouldn't play again in an England shirt. But change has to come, surely, because that wasn't good enough. And there's a number of players who should it be their last time in an England shirt for some time, until they go and prove themselves again. I think you watch that game back. The tackling was the equivalent of going to watch your under-9s at your local team. Like, it was dismal. There were a lack of foot that seemed to be in place. It's the second week in a row where the last defender's a prop, chasing players back because for some reason there has been no foresight, there's been no willingness to chase back, and for some reason our backs don't seem to be able to do that anymore. One of the big strengths of England's game, the kicking game and being in the air, second week in a row we've been found absolutely wanting and looking like we've never been able to catch a high ball in our life. Considering that is what the game plan is, it's a bit worrying. What have they been doing on the training pitch if they haven't been able to execute that, because they've been second best 2 weeks in a row now against two teams who arguably haven't been as good at that as England have been in for some time. Attacking wise, there was nothing on display. It was another case of plan A is not working. George Ford tried to do a little bit of running the ball. What happened? He got turned over nearly every time he went into contact, and he just looked like a deer in headlights because, suddenly I can't kick the ball. I'm just going to get tackled and I don't know what to do. But I don't want to point the finger at any individual, because I think collectively they were all really, really poor, and no one was helping each other out, and that's why they all looked really bad. And, I'm a proud Saints fan. There's a number of Saints on that pitch. I know last week I was very much defending the case of the likes of Alex Mitchell and things like that. But, well, one, he went off injured, so he can't take most of the blame this week, thankfully. But, the rest of them, like Tommy Freeman was unused. Fraser Dingwall would have fallen off a couple of tackles and not really do much. Henry Pollock, got a silly yellow card. He looked busy, but was the balance of the back row a big problem there? Because we had a number of... I saw it early on. There's a few occasions where Bernal and Henry Pollock were getting in each other's way. I think they were just both trying to play the exact same game, and then I think they just got in each other's way. yeah, it's really hard to try and find something positive out of this game. Rory, have I missed anything that's on your list of bad news?
Look, I think there's a lot. There's a lot of individual elements to the game plan that you can deconstruct. The only disagreement I've got with anything you've said is I felt like Joe Hayes earned his match fee. I thought he felt like the only one who was going a bit above and beyond.
Well, so he was the prop who was chasing back, and
Yeah,
to be fair, yeah, scrum time was possible, but he was the tight head who's up against the fourth choice loose head.
oh yeah. Look, I mean, I'm not saying he didn't have an armchair up, but he did a few out of the box things. I saw him make a fair number of tackles. Joe Hayes, but I mean, that is me grasping at straws to find any positive in that performance.
Yeah, that's fine.
Outside of that, I mean, you've covered a lot of the points together. The reality is you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater in a situation like that. I suspect there's an element of the number of coaching changes we've had coming home to roost. That looked evidence with the defence as it was. Obviously, Rich Wigglesworth's taken over that defence from Joel Ab recently.
Wigglesworth renowned for his defensive ability.
Yeah, you've obviously had Byron McGuigan's been in there for various bits and pieces. Felix Jones not too long ago. Obviously, Joel Ad himself is still, I think, working with the forwards, but I'm not really sure exactly what his role is. They looked very confused in defence, which was then compounded with what looked to me like, and I hate criticising pro players of this, but it looked like a lack of effort and commitment. And do you know what? I think we can call out some people individually. There was Ellis Genge on Caelan Doris, where he throws a weak shoulder into the ribs but doesn't try and wrap, and Doris makes yards. Ollie Lawrence I saw do the same. Dingwall fell off a few tackles. Thought Arundel wasn't particularly good in defence. I don't think anyone was particularly good in defence at all. Cowan Dickey got pinged again for another shot. It's all poor on the defensive side. The most egregious problem is the turnovers. Unforced turnovers. I think 24 unforced turnovers
have you seen
this match.
That stat of turnovers and penalties is the most conceded by any England side for 15 years in one game.
Yeah, and it's inexcusable because it's the kicking game. They're not picking up the scraps like they did last year. I think what's happened is the other teams have realised that as long as you mark the scraps and kill England's chance of recovering those, which sometimes England do themselves by just poor skills and poor catching. Yeah. They don't really seem to have an avenue into their attacking game. But also, for some reason, all the players seem to have completely negated the idea that maybe they could just catch the ball as opposed to batting it.
Does my head in. I mean, that's the tactic now, isn't it? You don't try and catch a ball anymore. It's literally just get your hand up and knock it back.
They just negated that as a skill set. And I understand it's difficult to do, but that is the reason you've been picked. That's the reason why someone like Freddie Stewart, Tommy Freeman, about the week before, they were picked because of their apparent ability to do that. That seems to have left them. I thought the lack of execution in the 22, their inability to finish off opportunities is now a real problem. It was a problem last year, but kind of masked by a strong defence. Take away the strong defence, that is a real problem. They've got, I think, the second lowest
I saw that
conversion of any T1 nation. And that is coming home to roost now because for whatever reason, they either panic in the 22 or they are so sloppy with the ball at the breakdown. I mean, more knock-ons again in the 22, more inability to manage their own breakdown. Ireland absolutely decimated the breakdown and the maul.
It destroyed them all. Destroyed it.
Yeah, it looked foreboding with that first line out maul, but it was a sign of things to come when Joe McCarthy just absolutely splintered it. That is a collective effort issue from a forward pack.
Yeah, it shouldn't. You'd never see them splinter that quickly, that easily at any level. No. Usually, when it's professional rugby. So you're right. That should have been a real kind of red flag from the get go. Really, I also think it doesn't help when your fly half puts 2 penalties dead. Things like that. I mean, doesn't help.
George Ford, who last year looked like a man who could do no wrong when it came to the nuts and bolts of his position, in the last 2 weeks can do no right. He was England's top ball carrier for metres and carries in this game. Now, with the best one in the world, George Ford is amongst the last names on that team sheet. I would want to have that stat.
Yeah.
But it's between him and Joe Hayes who would want at least to have that stat, because it's not his game. And you were right, he got turned over consistently. But that's just so many moving parts issues. Where were his options to pass the ball? Why is he having to run it?
Yeah, no one is helping him.
That falls down to your midfield. I thought Dingwall was mostly anonymous in this game. He didn't do any of that kind of glue work that he's supposedly famed for. He was anonymous. Ollie Lawrence was never really in the game, bar one try. The wingers weren't working off of their wing. If you compare what Balogun was doing to Arundel and Freeman, Balogun was popping up all over the place. Looking at was it Osborne's try or it was O'Brien's try, wasn't he? Put him in when he makes the break and puts him in on the left.
Yeah,
that's great work rate. Didn't see any of that from England's wingers at the weekend. No. The back row, England have now, I think, won 2 turnovers in the whole tournament.
That's bad. That's so bad.
When you're picking 3 sevens, that is bad.
Yeah, that's real bad.
I don't think of any of the back rowers England have played so far in the Six Nations. I don't think any of them have hit their straps even remotely. I mean, Ben Earl was the best of a bad bunch last week. This week, maybe he was again, but I mean, again, splitting hairs. I think all 5 are poor. Whatever the game plan is with those 5 back rowers is not working. And they were shown up. I mean, they were obviously shown up at line-out time. The line-out fell apart. We've talked about it before, the need to have 3 line-out jumpers. Ireland had 4 in their team: McCarthy, Ryan, Byrne and Doris, who were all very comfortable line-out jumpers and dismantled England. To an extent, I felt sorry for Luke Cowan-Dickey being kind of to carry the can for that, but ultimately he'd been poor. There is now a real question mark about what England do at hooker, because Jamie George is 35 and retiring in 18 months, and Luke Cowan-Dickey is out of sorts and possibly not the player you need him to be at the moment. Maro Itoje looks mentally shot.
He needs a break.
He just looks. I sympathise. Obviously he has gone through a really, really difficult period with his mum dying. But he's been hooked in the last 2 weeks, having, I think, never really been substituted before for England.
Yeah, he was always an 80-minute man, wasn't he?
Always an 80-minute man. The reality is he just looks like a man who is just under fire and he can't do anything like what he's meant to do. And I think at the moment, it's that kind of sunk cost fallacy of you keep playing him thinking he'll get back to his best, but he just looks like he's drowning under the weight of whatever it is he's going through at the moment.
Yeah.
Coaching wise, England. The reality is this England team is not as good as we thought it was. It's probably not as bad as we think it is today. But sport is emotional and romantic and reactionary. You are only ever as good as your last game to most fans, and you can try and put context. Last week, trying to put context on it. This is a team that beat New Zealand, beat Argentina 3 times, beat Australia, beat France, beat Scotland. But they seem like a team that whatever it's trying to do, and maybe it is trying to take the next step in its evolution, but whatever it is trying to do, the players are either not bought in or they're not understanding it. They kicked 18 times in this test match. It's the lowest of any team in the Six Nations throughout this whole tournament. They didn't kick enough.
Because they kept dropping the ball before they could kick it.
Because they kept dropping the ball. They had bad possession. But also it suggests they'd gone away from whatever it was that was working, and plan B wasn't working either. Tactically, they look so confused.
Yeah.
They don't look like they know when to kick. They don't look like they know how best to kick. They don't look like they know how to best to play with the ball. The skill sets were appalling. I mean, just across the board appalling.
I think what makes it just more annoying is that we watch these players week in, week out in the Prem, and we know what they are capable of. And it's just when you see them run out in an England shirt and they just don't hit those standards, anywhere near those standards. When it's 2 weeks in a row, you really have to start asking questions.
they're shrinking. They are shrinking under the shirt again. Having gone through that point where it looked like players were shrinking, which, let's be honest, it looked like in the Eddie Jones era towards the end. That's what the players looked like. They then seemed to be in a position where they weren't doing that. They were holding the shirt up well all through last year. They looked like a team that was confident in how to win games, how to play, how to put in a performance. They now all of a sudden look like they're shrinking again, and that suggests a team that is mentally not as strong as we thought it was. They looked mentally weak. They looked mentally weak last week, they looked mentally weak this week. And it's a harsh criticism of players who have got proven track records, but you can only take what you see. And there's players on that pitch that you do not expect performances like that from. Tom Curry has never performed this poorly in his entire career.
Yeah.
As he has in this tournament. And for me, that is enough of a red flag. It's enough of an alarm to say something fundamentally is wrong. If Tom Curry is not performing and not putting in...
If you're not getting at least a 7 out of 10 from Tom Curry, there's something wrong.
Something is fundamentally wrong. If Maro Itoje is unable to go 80 minutes, something is fundamentally wrong. If George Ford looks like he doesn't know what to do tactically, something is fundamentally wrong. Because what makes these players is being stripped away from them at the moment. Ultimately, there's going to have to be some change for the Italy side, because this team, as it is today, can't take the field in Rome. No. Because if they lose in Rome, let's be honest, they're not winning in Paris. They lose in Rome and they go into Paris off the back of 3 big losses, they're going to get murdered.
Yes, absolutely.
And it already looks pretty bleak for that game now. I mean, go back to the optimism we had before this tournament.
I know. Just night and day. It's
night and day. I think they need to look at some fairly fundamental shifts. I think I would be inclined to bring in, if he's fit, I would bring in Furbank, because, and I like Freddie Stewart, and I think he's been brilliant in the Prem, and I think he's massively worked on his game and improved in a really fundamental way this season. But he's not showing up in an English shirt in this tournament, and ultimately there is a question as to whether he's got a test match quality, and at the moment he seems to be answering that himself.
Well, it's back to when Freddie Stewart got dropped the first time. It's those sort of performances again, isn't it?
It's the same sort of problems again, and I felt bad for him getting hooked, because actually I think I would have hooked George Ford for Marcus Smith.
Yeah.
Given the option at that point, I think Marcus Smith at 10 was actually the better option.
Yeah, I agree.
To go for. But you can't start Marcus Smith at fullback, I don't think, really, if Furbank's still an option. And I think you probably have to find some other alternatives as well to get into that shirt. Probably someone like a Joe Carpenter, who's can bring a bit more of. He's got the ability to bring a kind of Mike Brown level of energy, but also has got really. He's got an attacking game that is probably kind of akin more to Marcus Smith at fullback as well.
Yeah.
With his feet and his pace. I think you've got to stick or twist on the centres now, and I suspect they're probably going to have to just go with a Jomo and Lawrence. I don't think they can afford to put Freeman back there, and I don't think Dingwall's bringing enough at the moment in this tournament to maintain his position in that team. And
there's definitely not argument to say that he doesn't deserve to be untouched by rotation. That's for sure.
I think I would probably be inclined to put a Jomo and Lawrence there. You could maybe make the argument for Seb Atkinson if you need someone with a bit more ball carrying ability.
I'd like to see Seb Atkinson in there.
Fundamentally, we're not carrying the ball. We're not making ground. I think you have to bring Chandler Cunningham South back in. I think this going back to this having just sevens in the back row, I don't think it's working. They need some ball carrying ability. What they've lost in Tom Willis is now looking like a real hole in that team. And the best of the world can't do it himself. And Henry Pollock, I'm sorry to say, didn't prove himself to be a starting test match player at this point. He may well be at one point, but at the moment he wasn't a starting test match player.
No, so I'm not going to sit here and say he looked like that on the day, although I do think he was one of the few players who I think did put the effort level in. It's just whether it was directed in the right parts of the pitch is the question mark.
I,
I think the entirety of England rugby needs to be focused on where do we find that big ball carrying 8. And unfortunately, for some reason, we can't pick them when they're in France because Tom Willis is the obvious answer. But it's really starting to expose how that is a huge, huge gaping issue with English back rowers we have at the moment, because there really aren't any big.
We need to
Alfie Barbary, maybe. Like, we need to start thinking outside the box, maybe.
Maybe, but I don't see Barbary as a test match player. You need someone you can throw up at the line out as well. Ultimately,
true.
You need to be able to have that option. I think you're probably looking more like, can we develop someone like Zach Quins as a project for the future?
What about Tom Pearson at Saints? Could he transfer to an 8 shirt? I've often wondered.
8, or maybe you could just have him as a flanker and keep Earl at 8, but have Tom Pearson there as someone who can play that role around the park. Maybe that is the answer to someone like that, but at the moment the balance is off.
Or do we go back to having a kind of second row 6 hybrid in the 6 shirt and put Alex Coles at 6, just for the line out options?
You could, but again, you need a line out option. But I think we just need someone who is
the hard yards
carrier in traffic, and I think that's where Cunningham South has got to be it for me at the moment.
Yeah.
And again, there's a reason. There must be a reason why it's not getting picked. But just from an outsider's perspective, I think he's the only player who can fill that need at the moment.
Yeah, at this point in time, yeah.
But, I mean, it's a real problem because at the moment you're asking Bernal to do a lot of work that he's not necessarily equipped for. Ellis Genge do a lot of work that he is equipped for, but he can't do the whole thing. And he's also... you probably saw his interview after the game. He doesn't look right at the moment either. And maybe there's a question mark about what's going on in the environment at the moment.
Doesn't feel the same as it was 12 months ago, does it?
Something feels off. Feels off. You know, I say it doesn't pass the smell test. Fundamentally, England have got a lot of soul searching to do over the next week, and Borthwick is going to have to. He's going to have to make some bold decisions, which he's proven himself capable of doing. And he's probably going to have to get around the table with his coaches and draw out plan A, plan B, plan C. Let's drill these into these players so that by the time we get to South Africa in the summer, they know, here's what we try first. If that's not working, here's what we try. If that's not working, here's what we try. Because at the moment, it doesn't feel like the players know that.
Where do you stand on, say, England were to go and lose to Italy and then get decimated by France? Is Borthwick still safe in the job?
Probably at the moment. I mean, safe is a relative term. My gut feel is, unless England go on and don't win another game this year, gut feel is Borthwick takes his team to the World Cup.
It would be a big decision to make to change coach at this stage in the World Cup cycle.
It would be a huge decision, and I also don't know who you'd necessarily bring in to the job.
This is why I'm being slightly quiet about it, because I imagine people would then start thinking, Mr. Dowson over at Northampton is doing a pretty good job, and that's the type of rugby that everyone's shouting and screaming for.
I think Phil Dowson will be in line when Borthwick does go. I think it could be someone who does maybe they groom Lee Blackett for that role, but I think at the moment you probably can't change the coaching team. You certainly, I don't think you can. I think at this point one of the problems they have is they haven't had a stable coaching team, so they need to put that in place. But they've got to get around the table and get some things.
Yeah.
Straight.
I realize we've rabbited on there for about 20 minutes about how bad England were. We should
cover Ireland.
Touch on how actually good Ireland were.
They were phenomenal.
Yeah,
phenomenal. I thought they looked like a team that had absolutely nailed the emotional preparation for a match like this.
Yeah,
absolutely put my hands up. Say I misjudged the capabilities of the Ireland team, and I think Andy Farrell has got to say all the plaudits for getting this team in a position to pull up this performance off the back of the last 2 weeks. There's a lot of players. I mean, Stuart McCloskey, at the start of the tournament, I had him in my fantasy team because I thought he was underpriced. last 2 weeks has been fairly anonymous. He was every bit the player I thought he was at the start of the tournament this week.
Fantastic.
She was phenomenal. Balakoon just
rapid,
and also rewards. It's a coach. Rewarding the coach for a bold selection when it's not necessarily in the DNA to do that. He was phenomenal. I thought Tommy O'Brien, who came on quite early for James Lowe, I'm getting it right this time. I thought he was excellent. Crowley, I thought, absolutely justified his position, looked really assured at 10.
Yes, there's your answer to the 10 debate, Ireland fans. Yeah. I'm sure you've all figured that out for yourselves.
Yeah, 100%. Dan Sheehan put in his best performance of the tournament. Joe McCarthy was everywhere, both sides of the ball. The break he made was terrifying. Yeah. I mean, by that point, I think we were all fairly sure the game was going in one direction, but that just felt like the real icing on the cake when he started the ball and made the break from his own 22.
Yeah.
Ty Burn, best performance I've seen from him since the Lions tour. Kevin Doris, phenomenal. Josh Van der Fleer, phenomenal. And ultimately, it all centred down on James Gibson-Park, who was world class. World class.
Absolutely ran the show.
Pulled out one of those performances that remind people why, for a long time, he's been held in the same plethora as Antoine Dupont.
Yeah. It was definitely it was a reminder about why he was always kind of the absolute nailed-on Lions starter pick and things like that. It's just those performances that he pulls out. We kind of saw it a bit last week where he came off the bench and really kind of dragged Ireland by himself. In that game, I think he steered Ireland from the start of this one superbly, and all credit to him, really.
Ruthless performance from him and the whole Ireland team. I mean, scoring that tap penalty, just absolutely just gutted England at that point, because I think they've been sort of threatening to get into the game and Ireland go down the other end of the pitch and get that and score. Their ability to score at the right time as well. After Piardi goes off injured. Yeah. They then score. So it's just the point when England have had the chance to take a breath and have a chat and reset themselves. They scoring right after half time when England would have been trying to reset and go again. They just kept scoring at times that just gutted any semblance of momentum. Obviously because England scored, Dingwall obviously dotted down right on the stroke of half time. So you're suddenly thinking, right, terrible half, 22-7. But the comeback's not impossible. They're going to come out all guns blazing. Just Dan Sheehan going over, you go, no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Game's gone.
So absolutely ruthless performance from Ireland. And to do that at Twickenham is beyond impressive. I mean, I think it's the second biggest win in the modern era after the France game from a few years ago. Yeah. I was devastated watching this. Devastated to be watching that performance. But you have got to tip your hat to what was a phenomenal performance from Ireland. Absolutely belying, any kind of commentary on where they are as a team. Reports of the death of Irish rugby were premature.
Yeah, who said stuff like that?
No, idiots. Idiot podcasters who don't know
what they're talking about. Exactly. Not the greatest rubber stamping into our credentials, that one. But we're an honest pod and we're a humble pod and we're happy to admit when we're wrong. And
we've got to take our licks on that one.
And
we were absolutely wrong about that Irish team, and it looks like we were quite wrong about this England team.
It certainly seems that way. I think that's quite enough about this fixture, Rory. I don't know about you, but the less I dwell on it, the better for my own mental health. Let's move on to Wales versus Scotland. Now, I think I'll set my stall out early. If I was a Welsh fan, I would be, on one hand, gutted to have not won this game. But on the other hand, actually really happy with finally seeing a Wales performance that had real signs of positivity and growth and something to cling on to.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think this was a good matchup for this Welsh team. Yeah. I would say that. I think the Scottish level of physicality in their team is not high. And this was a good matchup for a Welsh team that is lacking top-end physicality. But take nothing away from the effort and commitment of that Welsh performance. I think you're right. I'd be gutted if I were them to not have come away with a win there, because I thought they were, for probably about an hour, a better team.
Yeah.
50 minutes, an hour. They absolutely tackled our teams. I mean, some players who've stepped up at this, in the Welsh, or maybe not done what they could have done in a Welsh shirt to drag this team by the scruff of the neck. But people like Dewi Lake, I thought, were monumental. I thought Daft Jenkins looked like the top lock that we thought he might be when he was. Wainwright, brilliant. James Botham came on early for Plumtree. When Botham came through, I thought he looked a real talent. He's sort of been, to an extent, in the wilderness for a lot of his Welsh career. I thought he was phenomenal in this game, just everywhere. Ryan Elias, when he came on for Dewi Lake, was great. Costello at 10, excellent. I'd say a bit of a maligned man in a Welsh shirt. Actually, I just thought he was excellent. Thomas Williams looked like the leader that he's capable of being in this team. And they scored a couple of really nice tries. Rhys Caray's try was really well taken. It looked like a team that was coached. Josh Adams' try looked like a team that was coached. Really well taken again. Not like elaborate, not intricate, but just well coached, well drilled side. And actually, maybe it's just a case of more time in the training paddock, more time under Steve Tandy, more time with that group of coaches. You will start to see improvements. So what they look like in 2 weeks, who knows? But absolutely signs of life in that team. Scotland, big sigh of relief, I would imagine.
Yeah, one got away with one in there, I think.
Yeah. Dragged through probably by Finn Russell and taking advantage of some slips by Wales that were a bit more the theme of last year. The Darcy Graham try, obviously, being the obvious example with the kick from the kickoff. That was a death knell, I think, for them after scoring. Owning the 3 points.
It's a tricky one, that, because obviously you have to credit Finn Russell's and Darcy Graham's kind of one being on the same page to the extent they were, and to be able to execute that. But is it unforgivable from a Wales perspective to not react to that quicker?
It's just basic errors. It's basic errors, which is what Wales has been plagued with the last couple of years. Just absolutely plagued with making basic errors that you can't make it in top-level international rugby. And that will ultimately always be their demise until they can stamp that out of the game. Because the great Welsh sides of the 21st century were the ones that were so error-free. It was frustrating as an opposition fan, because you never felt like they gave you an in. And until they get back to something like that, they're going to struggle. Ultimately, I think this game sort of hinged on Finn Russell turning it on and being the player he's capable of being in that Scotland shirt.
Yeah.
Realistically, outside of that, I mean, Tuipulotu I thought was good. Carl Steyn, another good game. Blair Kinghorn probably had a good game, I'd say.
Yeah.
But
I'd say
the Scotland pack struggled.
I'd say the pack was definitely second best to the Welsh pack. And I don't know if you mentioned at the start, but I thought Alex Mann was really good for Wales. I think he had some Alex really good turnovers. And you did say Wainwright, but I think him, as we said in the England game, his ball carrying was a big part of what kept Wales going forwards. And I think that's definitely something that they should be looking to build on. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. I would,
if I was Scotland, I would be very relieved, and I would be trying to work out how we can get more impact from the pack. I mean, I know that they lost a couple of players. I think they lost Dempsey and Ritchie, and Ewan Ashman, but it wasn't good enough from the pack. They were absolutely outmuscled by a Welsh pack, which, let's be frank, has been outmuscled by
an England pack.
Well, been outmuscled by some packs who on paper are more inferior than the Scotland ones. So they've got a bit of soul searching to do, probably for some tough tests to come, because if their pack performs like that against France, they have got no hope.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think most teams have no hope against that French team at the moment. I think Wales, Scotland. It is a sigh of relief for Scotland. Some shoots of positivity for Wales for once. But hey, least we've got a week's break. Maybe Wales, as you say, another couple of weeks on the training paddock.
Look, this was a genuinely exciting match to watch, right?
Yeah, it was a great game. Great game.
Absolutely nail biting. I really enjoyed watching this one. Admittedly, by this point, I'd been in the pub since 11:30, so I'd have probably enjoyed anything. But
it lifted your spirits. It lifted your spirits after the England game.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the great thing about this tournament is that results aren't certain. Sometimes you get games like this where right to the end you're thinking, Wales are going to do this. They're actually going to do this. And you think, God, I'd love to be in Cardiff tonight.
Yeah, imagine the scenes if they had pulled it off.
Yeah. But, they got something to hang their hat on now. That's a performance to hang their hat on.
Yeah.
And, they go into their last 2 weeks. They've got Ireland on the Friday in Dublin, which will be tough, particularly if Ireland pull up a performance like this, but they've got something to hang their hat on to say that's the level of performance we've got. And then they've got an Italy game, which looks more winnable now.
And could lead to a wooden spoon off with an England team, maybe. Who knows?
Well, let's not rule that out. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm certainly not ruling that out. Okay, well, let's move on to the next game. France versus Italy, the one we build in our predictions for being really close and being a good game. It was a good game. It definitely was a good game.
It was a good game.
But I think what we saw on display there was,
ruthless.
The winners of this tournament are quite clearly just being ruthless and kind of on both sides of the ball. Like their attacking game as well as their defensive game, it's just where you'd want your national team to be at this point. And unfortunately, it's the French side that is in that position.
Yeah, 100%. But we don't think there's a lot of weaknesses in this side. They didn't look like any in this one. I mean, honestly, Italy didn't do a lot wrong in this game.
No, I think
Italy would generally put in a performance that I think would have given most tier 1 nations a good go and would have beaten a fair few of them. I thought
my notes were that Italy went toe to toe with France in nearly every part of the game except from being clinical and in the red zone. That was literally the only difference.
Look, when they're missing volleys and they're going straight to the outside centre, who then runs 60 metres up the pitch, it's not your day,
Yeah.
And that looks like luck, and there's obviously a big slice of luck in it, because it literally was a sliced kick. Just comes from, they're just in motion, moving forwards. Gaetan's not on his heels. That ball spoons off of Beer-Beret.
Yeah.
And he's not on his heels. He's already in motion. He sees it. He reads it. He picks it up, and he's already picked out his gap, and he's gliding through. They're just constantly moving and looking for the option, and it looks impossible to defend, as pretty much as it proved in this one, because Italy actually defended really, really well right up to the point until France scored.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was one point like they were defending so well, and they'd gone through really good defensive phases, and then all of a sudden Miafu comes on a crashing line, and you go, well, that's just physics, isn't it?
Yeah.
Physics, you can't stop him there.
Yes. That immovable object versus an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Miafu is a bigger immovable object than the unstoppable force that Italy were able to put on the line. And I think he would have scored against a bulldozer there for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot of aspects really well. I mean, Italy, they were great at the breakdown. Zuliani was phenomenal at the breakdown.
Yeah.
Stole some really good ball. I thought Capozzo looked great at the fullback. I thought Menoncello was brilliant.
Yeah.
Ball carrying on the line, made great ground. I thought Marin was brilliant as well at 12. They're obviously going to need. There was a question mark of what happened if Brex or Menoncello weren't available. I think Marin's stepping up as another really good option in the centres there.
Yeah.
Adogwu, when he came on, looked really lively. Garbisi looked good. Fusco looked good. The pack in general, really, really strong. Went really well at scrum time. Gave France real problems at scrum time.
Yeah.
And then lost.
Yeah. What was an anticlimax? But you also put into context that this is a French team that lost their 10 kind of last minute, where Jalabert was replaced by Ramos stepping into the 10 shirt, and Sogbe going into fullback. I think it's just signs of exactly where France are, that they can have that sort of disruption and it almost be seamless. And you wouldn't
doesn't look like a problem to them, does it?
You wouldn't think there'd be any changes last minute to that team. Like it's ominous when a team is that in sync and not undone song, regardless who's in what shirt.
I think they just, because their skill set is so good, it's so contrary to having watched England the day before. The skill set is so good, and because they're constantly in motion, it never looks like they're putting in loads of effort, but they're just constantly moving and making options and being an option and taking options. It just looks seamless because it's like perfect chaos in action. But really, all they're doing is just taking 4 or 5 very good classical rugby options and just applying them constantly all the time, and you can't defend everything. You just can't. I watched that very concerned about the last game of the tournament for us, and I watched it very concerned about the next game of the tournament for us, because I thought that Italy side, in the strength of the last 3 weeks, is performing much better than England.
Yes.
And I don't think England are going to get the upper hand at scrum time. I think Zamboni is perfectly capable of dismantling any line out, and their backline looks much more impactful than almost any other backline in the tournament. You know, Menoncello can do things that pretty much no other back in the tournament can do at the moment.
Yeah, as it stands, Menoncello is going to have a field day against that England side unless something changes drastically. So get him in your fantasy teams, people. Although I imagine he probably is in most already.
Yeah, it'd be mad not to have him.
Mad not to have it.
They were actually. It's not a lot you can analyse because, you know, as soon as Dupont booted the ball and Bielbarré just tore past Capawatso, you go, I mean, ultimately there are certain immutable facts in life, as there are in rugby, and bigger, faster, stronger team who doesn't make mistakes will win a game, and it doesn't matter how much effort you put in sometimes. And Italy absolutely ran theirs off.
Yeah.
And they were brilliant for large periods, and they attacked really well, and they put France under real pressure at times. And in the end, it didn't make a blind bit of difference, because you can't really compete with what France are doing at the moment. And I don't. There's not really another team that can outside of South Africa.
Yeah. I agree. I don't see another team doing what France are doing at the moment, and I think, as we said at the start, it's a team designed to beat South Africa. And they're just using the Six Nations as the tournament to hone and refine that in hope to be able to put that on the field against South Africa when they next get the opportunity to, and put right the wrongs.
Very rare. Yeah, very rare to see a squad so good that they can afford to use the Six Nations as a practice.
Yeah,
you know, don't see that often. And
no,
this.
That's
I mean, the last team I think that was so good they could use the Six Nations as an arena to practice was probably England 2003. That's the last squad I think that was so much better than everyone else in the tournament that they could do that. I don't think anyone's been this good since.
Or the Red Roses.
Or the Red Roses, of course, yeah. I mean, men's rugby, sorry,
Yes. It's ominous, but, you know, we just have to enjoy it for what it is. And, you know, the fact that we get to watch France play some really beautiful rugby, you got to take the joy in that, and just accept that when we go into that final weekend and that final game, just, you know, get the hard hats on and just accept the inevitable.
Go to France and enjoy it. Go and enjoy it in France, in a bar with French people, because
that'll be the only way. That'll be the only way for an English person to enjoy that game.
Drink some Vin Rouge and, you know, enjoy the atmosphere, because they are going to be loving it.
Yeah, and
don't watch it in English.
Oh dear, Rory. How the course of this pod has changed in just 3 weeks, from optimism to just.
Yeah, sorry, listener, we're a bit down this week, but it's, you know, I live and die by sporting the roller coaster that is sporting emotion, and unfortunately this week it's really got me down.
Yeah, it turns out just the fickle sport of rugby has such a huge impact on our mental well-being and our positivity and outlook of life. You know, I'm sure it'll bounce back eventually. Should we do a quick team of the week, Rory? If you've got one available?
Yeah, go on. Why not?
Why not? Hit me with your front row.
I went Reece Carré.
Yeah.
Julien Marchand, although I was tempted by Dewi Lake, but I went Marchand in the end, and Ferrari.
So I did the same, except I did go Dewi Lake. I just thought
I won't argue with Dewi Lake. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
yeah, happy to concede that one.
No arguments there. Nice and easy. Front row. And it's kind of turning into the form front row of the tournament. That like, Ferrari's been a bit of a revelation, really.
It's been phenomenal.
And Fischetti would have been a perfectly good choice in this team as well. And another solid, great performance from him.
You think they're missing Riccione as well? And oh god, who's the hooker? Lucchese?
Yeah. Like they haven't. They are missing players, which is the scary thought that Italy aren't even at their strongest, and yet they've probably been the strongest pack so far. Second row, Rory, who have you got?
I went Big Joe McCarthy.
Yeah.
And Miafu.
Hard not to agree, and I am going to agree because those two probably were the standout logs. Miafu was an absolute wrecking ball around the pitch, and McCarthy was an absolute wrecking ball in any close quarters bit of rugby, and really took it to the England Maul. So as much as I'd like to create debate around a team of the week, it's really hard to disagree with that one as well. Back row, who's your 6, 7 and 8, Rory?
I went Tagburn at 6. No debates there.
No debates there.
7, possibly a debate on this one. I actually went Zuliani because I thought... Van der Fleer was great. I think Alex Mann's a really good shout. I thought he was very good. And I think Gigoux was brilliant in this game as well. But I thought Zuliani, there was one intercept and break. He disrupted the French breakdown in a way that no one else has really been able to in this tournament. I thought he was absolutely manful in this performance. So just as I won't argue with you if you've got an alternative, but I think on this occasion I'm just going to have to give a tip of the hat to Zuliani, who I think had a great tournament.
So I was on a coin flip between Zuliani and Van der Fleer, and I landed on Van der Fleer just because I think I have quite a few vivid memories of that red scrum cap just being an absolute thorn in defence for Ireland. And I think he was great. He encapsulated the physicality and the mentality that Irish team took and put and imposed itself on England. But I agree, Zuliani absolutely was a thorn in the side of that French team. So I'm happy either way. And your 8?
And Doris.
Yeah, because I think the argument this week would have been between Doris and Jalonch or Wainwright. I'm going to change because I was going to agree with you and go Doris. But I'm going to change. I'm going to go Wainwright just because I think he was a huge reason why that Welsh team really should have won that game.
He was excellent. Yeah, he was absolutely excellent. And put in one of those performances that really stirs the soul if you're a fan. But yeah, for me, Doris was just... Yeah,
I think I don't want to give too much. The more I talk about Ireland, the more annoyed I get again. So I'm trying to be positive and harness the court of Welshness I have inside me and try and put some positivity on the Welsh stuff rather than moan about England anymore. But yes, Caelan Doris was also phenomenal. Any debate over the 9, Rory? I'm assuming it's an Irish person.
Yeah, it's Gibson-Park. I mean, DuPont I thought was excellent in this game, Gibson-Park was just unplayable.
Can't look past Gibson-Park in this game. Just the absolute Gibson-Park show, really. And your 10?
Ben Russell just dragged Scotland over the line on this one.
Yeah, he was the difference maker. He's what basically gave Scotland the win, I feel, in that game. I think the rest of the Scotland side probably there's not many of them who are up for the debate. Even though Scotland won their game, Finn Russell's the only one who I kind of feel comes into the team of the week discussion. Your centres.
McCloskey and Gaetan for me.
McCloskey, absolutely 100%. And I went Menoncello, but I can see why you went Gaetan. I'm just a huge Menoncello fan.
I want to get Menoncello, but I was really I'm picking a lot of Italy players when France had beaten them by 25 points.
True.
So, and I thought Gaetan was excellent in the game. Obviously, he scored a try late on, made that massive break. He was constantly, good on the ball. Good in defence.
Again, this just gets me annoyed because France have Deporté, Moefana, Gaetan, Brauberay, Fiku. Like they're just
not fair.
Who are your wingers?
Beep Beep and Balakoon.
Still makes me laugh every time the Beep Beep. Yeah. I agree. I think the Beep Beep, Balakoon. I was almost tempted to go O'Brien because I think the way he came off the bench.
Yeah, I thought Tommy O'Brien nearly got in there, but then I thought back to Le Beep Beep absolutely skinning Capozzo, and I thought, I'm just going to pick that, aren't I?
Oh, I do like Le Beep Beep. And your fullback?
Did think about Capozzo for this one because I thought he was actually very, very good for Italy. I thought Osborne was very good for Ireland as well. As I've always mentioned, Kinghorn, I thought had a good game. But Atisogbe, for me, was just great in this game.
Yeah.
The fact that he stepped in there at last minute and performed that well, I thought
Yeah,
was excellent.
I went Atisogbe as well. Because it's that context of that he was shifted there, kind of final moments. It's not his. I know he can play there and has played there, but it's not his natural position. And he, Italy put in a real strong performance. And no matter what team you are, if you don't have someone who's doing a really good job at the fullback, you could be exposed. And Italy struggled to expose France completely. So you have to give Atisogbe a lot of credit there. So completely in agreement. I have earmarked predictions here, but I appreciate next week is rest week.
Should we give ourselves the opportunity to take some stock before we start making too many emotional predictions? And
I think so. Let's take some stock and let's change gear slightly, Rory.
Yeah, give us the breakdown of the next gen.
Yeah, I'm going to shift our attention to positive future of English rugby, and I think it's something that I think Prem Rugby is starting to get, and I think they're starting to realise. But I think one of the real potential growth parts of English rugby is focusing on this next gen competition, because I think if you look on social media, probably if you look at social media in a very rugby centric view, schools rugby and university rugby are probably the most popular parts or the quickest growing parts of social media in rugby at the moment. And I think next gen could dovetail into that perfectly, because obviously the schools feed into the academies work with universities. There is a real nice kind of partnership that could be formed there to really drive kind of almost like social media strategy to build the future of the game by finding the superstars of tomorrow, showcasing them, and kind of giving them a bit of a platform that's not really been there before. And I think that the finals day that they did this Sunday, which is the culmination of 9 rounds of each Prem Rugby Academy plus Yorkshire, who have an academy as well, playing each other all on the same day and kind of vying for their final positions, because it's been a league system this year. And I just thought, let's just congratulate the standard of rugby on the day was brilliant. I thought each team from bottom to the top was fantastic and really put on some great rugby. I think the fact that Prem Rugby actually, compared to last year, brought in commentators to commentate on the game. They actually streamed it live on YouTube, which was great. They had some I think for each game they had someone from the academy, so a player who wasn't available or someone who's been in the academy in the past, come along who were able to talk about the players playing so that you could get a bit of insight. There was some interesting kind of backstories, a few choice words, a bit of a few swears here and there. They're not media trained bunch, but it made for some entertainment. And I think there's something there, and I just want to congratulate Prem Rugby for doing it. The academies for doing what they can, and I think I've seen a real change this year compared to last season, where I felt like I was the only one talking about the Academy League on kind of my socials. The clubs have been talking about it this year. People are getting behind it.
I've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, I follow Gloucester, and I've seen them talk. I know Gloucester's under 18s are vying for at the top of the league, but they had some good results by the looks of it. And I thought, throughout the season, being able to sort of track results and team sheets and all that kind of thing. Were there any? Have you noticed the quality of the players themselves shifting dramatically, or how do you feel that the standard of player is bearing up?
I think the standard of players bearing up. There's definitely some individuals that I'll pull out, mainly from across the season, as well as the finals day. But I think the standard of coaching seems to be a step up. Because I remember last year, I went to Kingsholm and watched each of those games, and it was quite obvious the difference between the teams at the bottom versus the teams at the top. This year, when I was watching the games that I could watch, some of the teams from last year, so like Newcastle, for example, last year looked like quite a disconnected group of youngsters who probably it didn't feel like they were singing off the same page. This year, the Newcastle Red Bulls Academy team were excellent, and there's an identity there. And I think each team almost seems there's obviously been some sort of shift change that the clubs are realising they need to invest in their academies, and the coaching is obviously having an impact. Obvious stuff. I think one of the things is a general across the board. The skills of the players coming through is definitely stepping up. I think there's definitely actually no, skills are definitely up, but I think there's certain teams that are focusing on certain different skill sets. There are some teams that seem to be very focused on jouet, ball handling skills, just kind of being able to think and kind of play heads-up rugby. There's some teams where they are being so well coached and well taught on kind of the art of the set piece and the more close quarters parts of the game. And they're almost like choking other teams out of a game, being able to, like, it's an interesting difference between the two. And it does kind of line up with kind of the senior teams, so it almost makes sense that the senior teams...
So can I take some guesses? Set-piece teams, Bath?
Yeah.
Leicester?
Yeah. Well, you just have to look at like the top scorers for those teams, and they're all hookers and forwards because they're scoring lots of tries off the back of mauls, lots of pick and go. You look at the likes of Bristol Bears, jouet, Northampton Saints, like their top scorers are wingers and centres, scrum halves, etc., etc., etc. So it's interesting that this whole DNA thing and teams that are trying to build a future, they are. I think part of it is why the coaching is so good is because they're using the model of their first team, and it's obviously a proven model that's working for their first team. And I think that's what we're seeing. And I think ultimately it was just a really good day. Let me try and pull out...
I saw our old podcast stablemate Mark Williams was there. Select 15.
Yes, he was there. So they pulled out a team because obviously there's 11 teams in the competition. So when it comes to the finals, each team plays each other. The bottom team played a divisional invitational team that Mark Williams was one of the coaches.
Last year they invited RGC, didn't they? The Welsh team.
They did. And I thought they fronted up quite well actually and gave Yorkshire a really good game, which I think is a good testament to like the county system, which Mark is very much a part of. But obviously I've been tracking this competition throughout the entire season, and kind of like I've been building a picture in my head about the players who seem to be regularly standing up and really performing. So I'm going to give you a list of players who I think potentially could be names that obviously...
Give me some names and clubs, David.
Names and clubs. So Sam Marshall, the fly half from Harlequins, looks like a genuine prospect in the 10 shirt. His game management, his place kicking, very, very good. Very good level for someone his age. So he's definitely one to watch. Casper Reeves and Luke Springate of Bristol Bears and Harlequins, respectively. They seem to be the wingers to watch from this year's competition. Yep. Obviously, Charlie Tamani from Northampton Saints is another one to watch, but he's had quite a quiet season by his standards. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, from another Saints perspective, I think Will Heffer is, I think it's the son of Ali Heffer, or Heifer. He's been absolutely tearing up trees for Northampton this year. So I think he's one to watch, and he's kind of one of these new hybrid back row centres that's in existence. Lovely. Apparently, it seems. A few others. So top try scorer this year was a Saracens hooker. So obviously Saracens are looking to build on quite a strong set piece. So Tiani Aloni, he scored 10 tries this season, which considering you play 8 games, that's a pretty good return. Freddie Beasley at Bath, he got 8 tries. Exeter have a number of really skillful players. I don't know if you've seen the social media clip going around of kind of them doing some really good jouet stuff against the Northampton Saints team on the finals day. They've got a number of really good players who are probably worth keeping an eye on. I'm going to try and give like each club a little bit of a shout. So Exeter, Alfie Johns at Exeter's a pretty good player. Harry Westlake, they're ones to watch. Gloucester, Rakat Clarkson, who's kind of a lock back rower. He looks like a real good player. And Sam Bryant, a prop you've got. He's one to watch. I think he's already kind of on England under-18 radar. So definitely. Yeah. And Teddy Smith-Milne, the hooker, looked pretty decent as well, I'd say. So there's definitely,
good news for Gloucester fans.
Gloucester certainly need the hookers. Harlequins have already touched on a couple for them from Springer and Marshall. Leicester. So one thing I didn't realise last year, so one I tipped last year was a guy called Finn Charles. I didn't realise he was under 17 playing last year, so he's had another year of it. He carries the ball really strongly. He's a lock back rower again. He does some really good job. And there's a winger who scored an absolute worldie 80 metre.
Freddie Lomas.
Freddie Lomas. He looks pretty pretty handy. Red Bulls wise, so the one who really impressed me on the finals day was Jack Nesbitt. He nearly got a hat trick, but he was everywhere, and he looks like one to watch. Maybe like a Guy Pepper kind of regen, that sort of player. He's a back row.
Well, absolutely to hang on to this one.
We're hopefully to hang on to this one, and I thought their props were really good as well. I think it was Miles Order and Josh Duran. They were good ball skills for props. Touched on Northampton. Sale, Will Baston, their scrum half, was getting quite a lot of props from kind of the other commentators and stuff there. He's got kind of a bit of a Raffy quirk around him. So, that's no bad comparison. And they got another set of identical twins coming through in the Jacques brothers. So,
excellent.
Who doesn't like...
Love a twin set.
We love a twin set. Saracens, was I've said alone. So Saracens actually have a really good bunch. So Henry Hodgson, who's, I believe, Charlie Hodgson's son, he's coming through at fly half. So it's always interesting. You see some of these names come through. Bit of a kind of continuation. And who's so PJ Ludlow, back row, who's been really good this season as well. There's a few really good names in the Saracens one. And Yorkshire, a disappointing competition for them really, because they've kind of been a bit of the whipping boys. Obviously, Kalen Umanga, very famous rugby name. He's kind of been there. He's their fly half. And Lewis Jalal, who's a winger of theirs, who's kind of scored quite a few tries. He's in the England under 18s.
Watching him play. Yeah. Yorkshire obviously got a difficulty that they don't have the ties and the DNA that other teams do. So I sympathise that their setup's a bit trickier.
Well, and even this season, so they had a centre called Wojtek Nowicki. He's moved to Sale Sharks through the season. I think it's because to go to university. But I think players, when they're at Yorkshire Academy, they've always got one eye on kind of other options. So it does make the backdrop a little bit trickier. So hopefully
I'd recommend anyone who's interested in the Yorkshire rugby scene digging out the article. I think it was in the Telegraph talking about this and the Ian McGeekin's plan around this.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the headline from this section is the winner. Going into the finals day, everyone was expecting Bath to come out the overall winners. Because they've kind of dominated the league. Basically through their set piece domination and some really good work in the backs. I think it'll be disingenuous for me to suggest that their backs haven't been very good, because they have been. They've got a number of Declan Treacy, who's the brother of Connor Treacy, it might be the other way around, who's in the under 20s at the moment. Real handy centre they've got, and they've got some quite rapid wingers as well. And Max Hooper, their fly half, who is you're right, son of Stuart Hooper. But everyone was expecting Bath to win it. And then Bristol Bears, who have kind of really grown in this competition because they started quite weakly, managed to get in and qualify as kind of second place on the final round of the competition. And they only went and bloody won it, Rory.
I saw that. And they were down 19-7 at half-time and came back and won it. So huge result for them. And congratulations to the lads of the Bristol Cubs for taking home the trophy.
It was some game. And I think that Bristol Bears crop has some real talent. I think Casper Wheeler, their hooker, is one that really stands out to me as well. He looks like one to keep on. And their second rows, Will Papp and Monty Wells.
I think I saw one of them scoring a sort of 40-metre try or something recently.
Will Papp. He's done it a couple of times already. He's got some serious engine on him.
Love that.
He's very much in the Bears mould for a second row, a bit like a Joe Batley, who you kind of double threat, ball in hand and in defence.
Excellent.
And a really good set piece. So I think whistle stop. I can't give absolutely every player the credit they deserve. And it's a bittersweet moment for a lot of them, because for a lot of them it might be the last time they get to represent a professional club at rugby, because from now on that competition's done. You then go into the conversations of, do you get offered these senior academy contracts? Do you get offered the chance to be a professional rugby player, or do you not? And there'll be some people who would have pulled on their club shirt for the last time, and it's always a bit of a bittersweet moment for some of them.
Yeah, of course, but hopefully those who want to continue with the career get the option in the academy, or can take one of the alternate paths. University.
Absolutely. I think there are alternatives out there, so it's all good stuff, Rory, and I look forward to following it again next year, and then having this conversation this time next year, and then hopefully I'll be able to head down there and get to the game next time around as well. Fingers crossed. But that's the next gen for 2026, Rory, covered and I do like talk about the future of rugby. I feel it's quite cathartic after that. Just
a little bit of hope, David.
Just a little bit of hope. But Rory, I think that's everything got on the agenda. Was there anything else you wanted to discuss at all, or is it time for Rory's final thought?
I think it's that time, David. If England could pull out performance in their next game, it would save me a vast amount of money on Guinness. And
on that note, people, we will bring this episode to a close. We've been Rucks, Mauls and Overballs. If you've enjoyed listening, make sure to like, subscribe and follow. We'll be back again next week, hopefully with a bit of optimism, because, England aren't playing, so we're not going to be sad. Ta-ra!
Ta-da!